This is a production of WKNO Memphis. Production funding for Sports Files is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Today on Sports Files, I've assembled a panel of heavy hitters to preview the Memphis Grizzlies' 2013-2014 season. The Memphis Grizzlies are coming off the best season in the history of the franchise. A record-setting 56 regular season wins and a trip to the Western Conference Finals highlighted a spectacular year that had fans of the organization and the city of Memphis in a playoff frenzy. Last night, the Grizzlies tipped off the new campaign and did so with the new head coach in Dave Joerger. And if anything, the coaching change was controversial, but the players seem to have embraced it. The question, however, is how important is coaching anyway? And will a change make a difference in the fortunes of the team? The Grizzlies added some depth in the offseason and brought in an old familiar face in sharpshooter Mike Miller to help the team improve in the area of outside shooting. But of more concern is how much better did other teams in the Western Conference improve? Today, we will dive into all the pressing topics as we preview the season with Grizzlies beat writer for the Commercial Appeal, Ron Tillery, Grizzlies television sideline reporter on Fox, and co-host of the Fish and Stats Show on Sports 56 and 87.7 FM, Rob Fisher, and co-founder of the Grizzlies blog 3 Shades of Blue, Chip Crane. Next on Sports Files. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us again. We appreciate it. Had you here last year? Great season. Hopefully it's good luck again for this upcoming season. Ron, let me start with you. As the season gets underway, do you believe everyone is on the same page?
I believe so. I think Mike Conley said it during the offseason. It's the players' job to make this an easy transition for Dave Joerger. And I think everybody's shown that they're committed to that. Now, you know, it's going to be a transition period still and a learning curve adjusting to the new offense. But absolutely, they're on the same page.
Fish, there weren't many question marks going into the offseason, but so far in the preseason, we've seen this team struggle a little bit on defense, too, which is hard to believe. Should we be concerned with what we saw in preseason?
I'm not, but I'm not concerned about preseason in any sport for any team. Only because you don't have your starters really playing a lot of minutes together. You don't have your rotations really set. A lot of guys are trying to make a team. You're not really preparing for the opposition. You're doing things for yourself. I don't worry about preseason, good or bad. And we'll have to see as the season gets going. I think they're on the same page. It's a matter of now executing what they want to do. And they're changing their style a little bit. And you have heard some players talking about needing to adapt to that style. And hopefully it goes a lot quicker than, longer when the season begins.
Exactly.
Because you don't want it to take a month before all of a sudden you are on that same page. You want it to start right away. So, that's the biggest question I think coming in. I'm not concerned about the scores. The turnovers were bad, the defense, but those are things that these guys know how to play. And preseason lasts too long. They want to play. They want to play for real.
Chip, purely speculation on my part, but let's say the team gets off to a slow start. Do the fans come out and do they take it out on Joerger? And is that fair or unfair?
I don't think the fans will take it out on Joerger. I do expect us to start slow, though. So it's kind of a mixed blessing here. I think the team's going to take a lot longer to get back to where we were at the start of last year. You've got new bodies worked in, new coaching, new offensive philosophy, new defensive philosophies at times. These things are all going to take their toll early in the year, but I think most of the fans want to give them a few months to get it settled down. We're not going to be starting off running 35 minutes from all our starters. And when you bring in big guys off the bench, there's an adjustment period, and we don't have that worked out yet. So it's going to take a while, but it'll get going.
I think you'll have panic from some, and they'll be the loud people who normally have the panic. You can have panic after 2 games. I think with the loud crowd and start assessing blame, and maybe it starts with the head coach. But, every season the Grizzlies have really struggled to start, other than last year, which was fantastic. So, you look at the core of the players, the guys who are back, the defensive problems will take care of themselves. These guys will be fine.
Well, I just think that the elephant in the room is going to be the fact that Lionel Hollins is not the head coach. There's still a segment of Grizzly fans who just don't believe in this decision. Now, The question isn't whether Dave Yeager can coach. He's an excellent young coach. The question will always be, and this is what he'll be scrutinized by, is whether he can coach this team. So that's when you'll get the pushback.
Putting aside the personnel questions, and there are many, Ed Davis, Calathes, can he be a backup point guard? Let's talk about the coach himself. He's an assistant coach. They know who he is. They're comfortable with him. He was good cop as the assistant to Lionel's bad cop. Now he's the head guy. What happens the first time he pulls Z-Bo out of the game when he's struggling and Z-Bo gives him that look like, I want to be in there? Do you think Yeager's ready to handle this? Let me start with you, Ron.
Well, he certainly knows everybody. I mean, he's been here and he's built the relationships with the players. But it is a difference going from the assistant job to the head job. Now, we don't know how this is going to play out. It's cliche, but it's true. Only time will tell. When you get into the trenches, when you get into losing streaks, when you have to deal with internal player issues like you're talking about. So we just don't know how Yeager's going to react, and more importantly, how the players are going to react to him. So that's going to be an ongoing process. But it could be like Larry Drew in Atlanta when he took over for Mike Woodson and kept that team a playoff team until his days were done there. Or it could be like Ivoroni, who never got a grasp of this team and was done in a year and a half.
Time will tell. You're right. And I think it's not necessarily now. When Dave Yeager was hired, the players like Dave Yeager. He, as you said, he can coach. He's proven he can coach. It's a different voice. Dave's pointed that out. I think training camp's great because you all like him. You're getting ready for the season. You're antsy to play. The season starts. Everything is great. You're antsy to play. But you're right. There is going to be a moment in the season. It happened last year. You remember in Atlanta. You remember that disaster in Washington last year. Where all of a sudden, guys, you start to lose guys. And Lionel was excellent in bringing them back and bringing them back quickly. And that's going to be Dave Yeager's biggest test, I think, is when you do lose guys, because it will happen. It happens on every team. How quickly can he bring them back? I do believe he has an excellent staff that can help with that. Bob Thornton, his relationship with the bigs, and Bob was big and nasty when he played.
Right.
I think that helps with Zach and with Mark. And I think the other assistants, too, with the knowledge that they have on that staff, it'll help Dave Yeager bringing those guys back. And Dave knows their personalities, which gives him an advantage, but we won't know until it actually happens.
Chip?
Yeah.
Well, I think the last time you had a conference finalist coach fired or not rehired was in Chicago, and they brought in a guy who no one knew much about, who had had some success in the minor leagues. And Phil Jackson turned out to be a fine coach in the long run. So I think Dave Yeager has that type of pedigree behind him. I think he'll be a fine coach in the long run. The question is, how quickly can he get everyone on his page? And that's time will tell. And the season starts tough. We have a back-to-back game the second week, or the second, third games are back-to-back. Second game at a conference rival. These type of situations are going to test his knowledge because he hasn't dealt with that before. And we'll see what happens. But I'm very optimistic. I think Yeager's a great young mind. I think he's got this. He is on the same page with the front office, and everyone's working together to get it instead of at times at odds. And I think that's going to make a big difference during the season. And again, this team knows the playoffs are expected. We're working to see how far we can get once we get to the playoffs. So the people who panic early in the season will just have to be relaxed.
Quick answer from all three of you. Best off-season move the Grizzlies made? Ron?
Oh, I would say it's obviously getting Koufos. I mean, I don't know if Marc Gasol's had a really good backup, legitimate backup at center, and this guy is a starter. He's a tough player, hard-nosed rebounder. I think, you would have been just fine with having Darrell Arthur. But if you're going to trade him, they did an excellent job in getting return.
Okay. I would say Koufos because he started every game 81 games last year. He could start for any team in this league. I'll go ahead and throw in Mike Miller, a healthy Mike Miller. Now, we might have to wait till the end of the season to see if that is the guy. But so far, I mean, he looks dynamite, feels dynamite, looked great at the end of last year. If he is healthy, that could be a huge pickup.
Chip?
I think Koufos and Miller both are very experienced veteran players. If you want the wild card in there, it's Nick Calathes. I mean, Calathes has got to come in and shoot better than 50% from the line and 30% from the arc to be able to stay on the court in this game, and he hasn't shown he's able to do that yet. But as far as a competitive nature and a talent, he's there.
Let's talk a little bit about this offense. I think there's a misconception that Yeager is going to go away from his bread and butter and not get the ball inside to Gasol and Z-Bo, which the Grizzlies have lived on for years now. That's not what he's going to get away from. he's going to go to it, but he's going to do it in a different way. Ron, try to explain that to our viewers exactly what Joerger's trying to accomplish.
Well, it's nothing new. I mean, you've seen teams around the league go to a motion offense to try to keep defenses off balance. They want to get the ball up court quickly. They want to pass, and get to the open man and get the easiest shot available. Now, the problem that the Grizzlies have so far, and this is why I don't think training camp is so, not important.
Right.
Is because you want to establish good habits. One of the reasons why the Grizzlies got off to that 12-2 start in November last year is because training camp was such a hard-nosed emphasis on, hey, let's establish good habits right now and carry them on to the regular season. I think there's a legitimate concern, guys, when you turn the ball over, when you don't shoot a high percentage, and when you become a jump shooting team when you're supposed to be getting the ball in the post. And that's what's happened. And I'm just going to say that's a good way to play. Rick Adelman has been a brilliant mind as an offensive coach playing that way. Rick Carlisle, the Heat play that way. Mm-hmm. But it's going to be incumbent upon Dave Joerger when they're going 1 for 11 or they've missed 13 of their first 15 shots to say, hey, look, Mark, get on the block, get the ball to Mark or get the ball to Zach, and let's go back to our bread and butter.
Ron, you seem more concerned with what you saw in the preseason rather than Fish and Chip don't seem to be too concerned with what they did. But going into the season, what do you think the biggest issue is?
Well, I think that is the concern. Okay. And it has nothing, for me at least, to do with the preseason, although we did see that in the preseason. It's just natural. You go out and you sign some guys that can shoot. You also talk about Quincy Pondexter coming back from his success at the end of last year, expecting more shooting. You hope Mike Conley's long-distance shooting even increases a little bit.
Right.
So all you keep talking about is shooting. Well, you can't become a shooting team. I mean, you still have to have your identity. And you asked Ron, Dave Joerger's new offense, what does Dave Joerger want to do? I think Dave Joerger wants to keep it the way it was going. Keep battling inside. Keep getting the ball inside. Pound it inside. And when they come to double, now all of a sudden you do have shooters. You can move the ball out. Getting the ball over half court with 20 seconds gives you more time to work, gives you more time to get the ball inside. And if it doesn't work, you can hit the guys outside. The problem is, all of a sudden, I think with shooters and hearing that they're shooters and bringing in shooters, they're going to want to jack it. And when they get those open shots because the big guys are doubled, they're going to keep shooting. The thing is, you can't get to a point where you're shooting 19 threes, 20 threes in a game. Right. You still have to use that identity, and most importantly, you have to keep Zach Randolph happy. You got to feed the beast.
Well, the other buzzword is not just shooters, but playmakers.
Right.
There's been a lot of emphasis on guys having to be playmakers. Well, that puts in Quincy Pondexter's mind, when I get the ball, I got to do something with it. And so you talk about posting up. One of the problems in preseason, and this is stuff they'll work through. I really believe they'll get back to their identity. But when you speak about posting up, they get the ball to Zach. Zach does the right thing when he's double teamed. He throws the ball out. It swings, and it's a three-point shot in the corner. That ball has got to swing back to the post. They don't repost. And that's why posting up has been an issue in preseason.
Chip, key player for this upcoming season to have the success that you had last season. Who is the key?
Oh, that's a tough question. I think Mark is the key for everything that this team does. He's a defensive force. He's a quarterback of our defense. He can pass. He can score. He has one of the most efficient mid-range shots of any big man in the league. As he goes, so go the Grizzlies. And I think you need a statistical look, as Jason will be proud of here. Any statistical look would bear that out. So if you got to pick one guy to make or break this team, it's Gasol.
Fish, can this team be better with the moves they made in the offseason and then still come up short in the win column from what they did in that record-setting season last year?
Sure, you can. A lot of things went right for this team last year. They were healthy really most of the season. And I think when you look at the whole Western Conference, a lot of teams got better. I think everybody might take a small step back. 56 now maybe becomes 52. 60 now becomes 56. So yeah, you can have fewer wins when the regular season is all said and done. But I think come playoff time, at least going into the season too, and come playoff time, if you do have a successful season, you're deeper. And I think the issues that you had have been addressed. And so, yeah, I think you could be a better team, better playoff team, and maybe not have as many wins. But I don't think it'll be a significant difference.
Ron, what one player will be under the microscope the most this season?
Oh, wow. I think it comes probably back to Zach Randolph. I mean, People think he's on the decline. There's some signs of that. He's been mentioned in a lot of trade rumors. Mark, as Chip said, is critically important. But if you lose that toughness and that rebounding that you get from Zach down low, I think you got a problem.
Do you see the possibility of a move made sometime during the season, especially if this team gets out to a slow start? I mean, we've talked about it, about Zach Randolph. He's got one more year left on a big contract. Mm-hmm. Sure, his skills are starting to deteriorate, but he's an all-star last year. Do you think a move's made? I'll ask all three of you guys.
Well,
could it be made?
The one thing I didn't bring up when I was talking about Zach is his attitude. I mean, he's not a bad guy. Now, don't get me wrong.
Right.
I'm just saying, like, do you have an engaged Zach Randolph? We talked about this a lot last season, and it was critically important to their success, particularly in the playoffs. So his mindset is going to be just as important as his productivity.
Good point.
Well, and I think his importance to the team, I would list him as the guy that's the key piece, because you have to keep him happy. And as we've said, that means we have to continue with that identity of getting the ball inside, going into the post. And if you don't want Zach Randolph in the locker room now saying, well, we're just a jump shooting team again. And then coach has to bring him back. All those things factor into me about Zach being so important to this team. Can there be a trade? Sure. Maybe some injuries here and there, and you're not having the season that you thought, and a contender would like to make a move, and you can do that. And Ed Davis is having a great year, and you're going to have to sign him at the end of the year. If all those things happen, sure, you could have a move. Heck, they traded Rudy Gay last year in the middle of a good season. I think if you have the season you expect going in, that there's no way that you make a trade like that. But that means that everything has to go the way we're talking about, with Zach being involved in the way that he should.
Chip, your thoughts on that?
I think the fact that we only kept 13 guys coming out of camp is indicative that they're open to make a bigger move. And they know that they're going to have to take more bodies back if they're going to move a bigger contract. And frankly, they didn't need anyone other than the 13. So I think that shows their willingness to make a move. Whether or not they do depends on how well the team's doing. Are we clicking? Are we fighting? That will be determined during the season, but they've definitely left the door open to make a move.
If Zach's engaged and Zach's the all-star that he was a year ago, I don't see why you make a move, and I don't think it would make any sense. It all depends on the success and the success of the identity of the team. If the identity is still the same, and it needs to be the same.
I agree with that. I think if this is going downhill relative to what we're used to in terms of Grizzlies basketball, there's no way they want Zach to opt in to $16.5 million. If it's not going right, he'll be traded by the deadline.
If things are going well, if there's no key injuries, knowing what you guys know about the Western Conference and improvement with other teams, is there any chance, in your mind, the Grizzlies do not make the postseason?
Wow. Sports Illustrated came out and said the Grizzlies were the 9th best team in the Western Conference, and that means they wouldn't make the playoffs. I still think this is a playoff team in their sleep. They're talented enough to do that. To contend, I think part of my worry is whether they have lost their edge or not. This is not a team so talented they can flip a switch. They still are a hard hat team, and they have to come and outwork people every night. So if they don't have that characteristic as part of their identity, then it can happen. Absolutely.
I don't think there's a chance, barring injury or anything significant happening. They're a playoff team. To me, there are two teams in the Western Conference that are clearly better: San Antonio and the Clippers, with the moves that they've made. You can make an argument for maybe 2-3 other teams, but I think 3 to 6 is that range. I'd be surprised if it was below that, if you're healthy and going as planned.
Yeah, that's the thing I'd say. We have a deeper team than we've had, but we still rely on two big guys in Mike Conley and Marc Gasol, and then to the secondary players as well, like Tony and Zach. You can't have injuries on this team and expect to stay in the top half of the division or the conference. And Houston's improved. There's an argument for them. You've got Golden State's made some moves. Dallas has brought in some big names. I don't know how well it'll work, but you look at going down the conference, there aren't many easy games. Mm-hmm. Everyone seems to have gotten better. The teams on top can coast a little bit, but not a lot. I think it's going to be a very compact conference. Anything could happen. The injuries will have a huge impact on the final standings.
All right, Chip's favorite part of the interview, predictions. He loved his prediction from last year. So less than 2 minutes. I'll start with you, Ron. How many wins for the Grizzlies this year?
I'm saying 46 to 47, mainly because of what Chip just outlined. This conference has gotten a lot better, healthier. when you talk about winning 50 games, you're talking about winning home games, beating the teams you're supposed to beat, and quite frankly, in the Western Conference, there are not a lot of easy outs. So I think it's going to be super competitive, and they're going to. I'm going below the 50.
I'm going 52. I think there are other teams in the West. You know, Denver goes down a little bit. Still not believing Houston, and they might be a really good regular season team, but I'm just not believing it yet with the Rockets. Golden State, I don't believe that they've passed the Grizzlies either. I'm going 52 wins because I think it's competitive, but it will be compact like it was last year. That'll be good enough for third or fourth.
Chip?
I'm going to go with 50 wins. That's 30 home wins or 75% at home and 50% on the road. That's what it takes just to get to 50, and that's a good number for them.
All right, quick answer to this question. Do they get as far as they did last season during that record-breaking season? Meaning, will they make it at least to the Western Conference Finals? Yes or no? Ron?
No.
Fish?
Sure. If they're third, I like the first round matchup, and second, I still like the way come playoff time, if they get to that point, how they'd match up against the top two teams because of their big. So yeah, I'll say they get to the Western Conference.
Chip?
Oh, I don't want to go overboard. I'll say it's conference semifinals.
All right, sounds great.
I agree with Chip. I think they win a first-round series, but I don't think they get back to the
Guys, you were terrific. Once again, Ron Tillery, Rob Fisher, Chip Crane, thank you so much for being with us.
Good to be here.
We appreciate it. Can't wait for the season. Of course, it started last night, but the home opener tomorrow night against Detroit. We'll take a quick break. We'll hear what the players have to say. It's our overtime segment. It's coming up next. So that's how our media panel sees the upcoming season. But what about the players? Well, of course, the Grizzlies themselves are very confident that they could put together another outstanding season and even take it to the next level and get to the NBA Finals. And here's a selection of sound bites from our recent interviews with members of the team.
We got to play quicker, and that'll open up space for them. It'll open up space for Mike Conley. There can be some other effects of playing a little bit faster, which we can go into, but by and large, you know, everybody kind of knows we need to just, you know, pick up our pace.
Up tempo doesn't mean just to shoot fast. It means to get into the offense quicker, so you got more time to find the different, you know, weapons that you want, the different options that you want to find within that offense. So I have no problem with that because that means that to have more options to score, and so we can be better set defensively as well.
Is the team better? Did they have it? Wow, yeah. Because guys getting older, guys getting better. Like I just said, Quincy getting better, Mike, you know, Mark who he is, and Jared Bayless, and you know, guys is working. Tony, guys are getting better.
Because you know, when I came back from the press conference, I knew the team as a Western Conference Finals team. Now I know the guys, I know their commitment level, and I've got to play with them to see how good they really are. And if we can keep our toughness, if we can sacrifice, because with a team like this, and anything that I can help from coming from Miami is that you know, is the sacrifice part. Because when you have a team with this much depth, this much talent, numbers are going to go down. It's just inevitable if you're committed to winning a championship, and I think that's the case here.
Well, obviously, you know, I got great relationships with all those guys. 2, the city embraced me. 3, you know, I never felt this good in my career. Even when I was in Boston, you know, I was always wondering what the next day was going to be like. You know, ducking deadlines of the trade. You know, here, you know, I've worked, and the city embraced it. Obviously, I got a contract extension, and now it's time to continue working and keep the blueprint going. It's trying to be the grandfather.
Well, I haven't really talked to a lot of the guys about it, but honestly, I was really surprised about that. 'Cause I didn't think we were getting that type of recognition that you know, would be required to get that high of a ranking on there. And you know, when you saw that, it kind of shows how much Memphis is really growing, how people are starting to realize how special of a place it is. And you know, it's ESPN kind of they hit it on the on the ball. Everything was right about it. So
we bring people together, and for some reason I just really enjoy that as a sport. When they try to make politics out of sports, it doesn't, you know, takes away the beauty of sports, because what we try to do is just represent the city everywhere we go. And I take a lot of pride on that, on representing Memphis. You know, when I go international and played in Slovenia or Lithuania or in the Olympics, you know, I'm a Memphis Grizzlies player, and I take a lot of pride in that.
As we close tonight, we do so with heavy hearts after hearing about the passing of Tony Kelly last week. Tony was a two-time president of the Touchdown Club of Memphis and a friend of many. He was instrumental in helping me schedule guests for this show, my old television sportscasts, and my radio show. He was just 64 years old. Our thoughts go out to Tony's family. And that'll put a wrap on this week's program. You can see any of our previous shows, including last week's interview with Archie Manning, by going to our website at WKNO.org and clicking on KNO Tonight. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.